Alright, and welcome to 2-1 adding fractions. Now, in this very first example, we have 1 over 2 plus 6 over 2. And whenever you're adding fractions, you need to have this same rule. You must have, and I want y'all to write this down, must have a common denominator. And of course, I ran out of room. That's okay. Must have a common denominator. Now, what is the denominator? Well, the denominator is the bottom of the fraction. Let's just say B is for bottom. So, right here, you'll notice that the bottom of each fraction here is the same. And so, all we do is add the tops. 1 plus 6 is 7 over. And check it out. The bottom never changes. Okay? So, when adding fractions, you get a common denominator and you add the top. Easy. Okay, let's look at example 2. We see here that the bottom of the fraction, or the denominator, they're the same. We call that having a common denominator. And so we can add them, and of course on top, 3 plus 11 is 14 over 4. Because remember, the bottom never changes when adding fractions. Now what about 14 over 4? What can 14 and 4 both be divided by? Well, they can both be divided by 2, because they're both even numbers. 14 divided by 2 is 7, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. And so this, of course, reduces to 7 over 2. I would encourage you to pause the video, finish taking any notes that you need, and let's move forward. Okay, here we are in example 3, and it's a little bit trickier. You'll notice that this 5 is a whole number, whereas 3 over 4 is a fraction. So, of course, we want to change 5 into a fraction. And you know this, any whole number is really that number over 1. Excellent. Now from here though, you'll notice that our bottom of the fraction, or our denominators, they are not the same. We would say they have uncommon denominators. So here's the trick. We want to turn this 1 right here, we want to turn it into a 4. So the question becomes, 1 times what number will become 4? Well, you should know 1 times 4 will equal 4. And since I'm multiplying the bottom by 4, I have to multiply the top by 4. Okay, and so let's check it out. So we have here, I'm just going to kind of rewrite this. I'll write 3 over 4 plus, and here we have top times top, because we're multiplying. 5 times 4 is 20 over 1 times 4, which is 4. And of course now you'll notice that we have a common denominator. And of course on top, 3 plus 20 is 23, and we don't change the bottom. We get 23 over 4. Notice 23 and 4 can't be divided by any like terms, so they are in fact already simplified. Okay, let's go to example number 4. Now here is a more interesting case. You'll notice the bottoms are different, but 9 is a multiple of 3. So check it out. If 3, we're looking for 3 times some sort of number. Let me use a different color here. 3 times what number would get us to 9? Well, 3 times 3. And if we multiply the bottom by 3, we have to multiply the top by 3. Good. I think you're getting the hang of it now. And of course, here we have on the top 3 times 2, which is 6, over 3 times 3, which is 9. And wait a second. Now we have 6 over 9 plus 6 over 9, which in fact becomes 6 plus 6 is 12 over 9. Okay, now wait a second. Are we done? Can 12 and 9 both be divided by the same thing? Yeah, they can both be divided by 3. So 12 divided by 3 is 4, and 9 divided by 3 is 3. And so this whole thing, 2 over 3 plus 6 over 9, becomes 4/3. Once again, please pause the video, and we're going to move on to our last 2 examples. Okay, here we have example 5, where we have 1 over 2 plus 5/7. Now you'll notice in this case, 2 and 7 are not any sort of multiples of each other. And so this gets a little bit trickier. So what do you do when both denominators have no terms in common? Well, the trick is to multiply them both by a number that will get them to their least common multiple. Or if you want to get really, really simple, in this case we can actually just multiply them by each other. So for example, I want to multiply this by something, 2 times something, that will get 2 in a factor with 7. So I'll literally just multiply both the top and the bottom by 7. And then on the right hand side, I want to multiply 7 by some number that gets to being a multiple that also includes 2. Well, I simply multiply it by the other denominator, which is 2. Okay, so from here on top I have 7 times 1, which is 7 over 7 times 2 on the bottom, which is 14, plus over here on the top times top, I have 5 times 2, which is 10, over 7 times 2, which is 14. And notice, now I have common denominators. So if you're ever stuck, you can literally just multiply the denominators by each other. That's pretty easy. Now here, now that we have common denominators, we can add. We have 7 plus 10 on top, which is 17, over 14 on the bottom. Remember, the bottom of the fraction never changes. And 17 over 14 cannot reduce. And we're done. Let's look at our very last example. Here we have negative 10 over 3 plus 6 over 11. So once again, what's the trick? Well, I simply want to multiply this 3 by the other denominator. 3 times 11 on the bottom and 11 on the top. Now here, I want to multiply 11 by the other denominator, which is 3, so I multiply 6 over 11 by 3 over 3. And from here, it's pretty straightforward. Top times top, 11 times negative 10 is negative 110 over, I think, and over 11 times 3 is 33. Plus, on top we have 6 times 3, which is 18 over, and on the bottom 11 times 3, which is 33. Now remember, our denominator does not change, so I can go ahead and write 33. And the last thing we have to take care of is negative 110 plus 18. If you need a calculator, that's fine, but this should be, no math teacher, but I would guess negative 92. Now here's the final thing. Can negative 92 over 33 reduce? And the answer is no, but I want to give you a cool little trick. Let's take negative 92. Well, I can actually break it down into 9 plus 2. So I take both of those terms, 9 plus 2, and that equals 11. Is 11 divisible by 3? The answer is no. So since 33 is divisible by 3, and this number 11 is not divisible by 3, well, that means that that is also not divisible by 3. There are no like terms in common. If that last little part was a little confusing to you, scratch it from your memory, move on. Alright guys, I will catch you in our next video.